Good evening. Welcome to our daily class in Rebbe Nachman on Patreon. We are holding in the second Torah, in paragraph Vav, and we've been learning a lot of deep concepts, really deep stuff about how the tzaddik of Dor elevates the prayers of all the generation and how he connects all the ratzonot, all the wills of the people, and elevates their prayers. We've been talking also about that when a person learns lishmor ulasot, the two beginning levels of Torah, to keep the mitzvot and to do them, that already creates a kli, a vessel, which is called a garment, to souls that are fallen to rise up in this world. So your Torah could be doing that and you wouldn't even know it. That souls around you, souls that are dead, souls that are living, can actually be elevated through your prayers. And now, if you ask for proof, that's going to be tough. I'd rather go along with Rebbe Nachman's proof, because he lived it. He was known to elevate souls in places that other people did not go, places where there were murders and pogroms, places where Jews didn't even go. He was known for these types of disappearing adventures where he would go places and no one knew what he was doing there. But when they say no one knew what he was doing there in Breslov, they're actually talking about something that has remained an oral tradition. Because back in the day, 200 years ago, if a person came out and said, well, I'm taking a trip, I have to elevate the souls in Lemberg, the rest of the Jewish world would think you're crazy and put you in excommunication or something pleasant like that. So the Breslovers were smart and they knew how to hide their true dealings, especially these kinds of tzaddikim. And this is a tradition in the Kabbalah always, that the tzaddik who's doing the most is the most hidden. That the person that's really on the level doesn't say anything to anybody and no one knows what he's doing. That's really an amazing thing unto itself, that you see that who's the most hidden? Well, God is the most hidden. And if God's the most hidden, then to be like God also means to be hidden. So this is an important concept that we kind of overlook, we don't pay attention, or no one teaches us. Because the world is running after fame at every category. Whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, a rabbi, you know, fame it's a tava, it's a klipa, very, very close to the heart, the soul of man. People want attention, they want to be known, they like the feeling that people know them. And shalom to all our Patreon members, Sigalit, welcome. And so we have to deal with this desire to be famous before we can ever be famous, because otherwise it'll destroy you. And why do you want to be famous? What we want to do is make God famous, the right expression of who our Creator is. Right? We're not interested. What is my fame? Think about the most famous people from previous generations. No one even thinks about them anymore. They're gone. The people who are still alive are the people whose books we're learning in their Torah that we say and that teaches us and gives us guidance in this fallen world. So fame is a klipa, and it's something that we want to avoid. And if only the few people, Rebbe Nachman does say some people have to be famous. Some people, that's their job, and that's their avoda, and that's their tikkun, that they have to purify that need for attention, the need to be known, to purify your place in society. And if you're a Torah person, then even more so, because you're not doing it for your own fame. If you're a TV star, or okay, it kind of goes with the business if you make a successful show. But in religion, the business is to make God famous, to make God well known, and a version of God that actually works, because the old versions of God don't work, in my opinion. Okay. And we want this Shira to be for Reb David Chaim Shlomo Ben Esther Cohen, who had a big surgery today, a good friend of ours, and the father of Ariel Weisberg, and we should have good news very soon. Okay, so we begin now with an amazing question. The Rebbe says that a soul, I should read it inside. The Torah, hu esh umayim. The Torah is fire and water. Two of the four main elements that create all the physical world. Of course, our bodies have fire, our bodies have mayim. Fire is generally related to the mind because of the electrical processor that the mind is, and electricity is a very refined type of fire. Okay, and then water, of course, our body is full of water, and there are main organs that use water to do what they need to do. And so it's easy to kind of see those systems in the body. The Torah is also compared to many, many things, and one of them, the Torah is Torah esh ochelet, it's a fire that consumes. On the other hand, we call the water Torah because eitz hayim hi l'machazikim ba, eitz ashatur al palgei mayim. A tree planted by the waters is a man planted by Torah. And when he is planted by the waters, you're never thirsty. You're always getting lunch and breakfast and dinner. So the water is also a metaphor for Torah. Both of these, they seem to be contradictory. Water gives life and fire takes life. But fire also protects life because fire is heat in the cold. It enables us to eat food that we otherwise couldn't eat. And so fire does also contribute to life as well. Okay, where does this go? The fire is an aspect, the Torah is an aspect of fire and water. Well, listen to what he says. He says, Hayinu bechinat hanishamot. So the idea here is very subtle, and you could just read it and skip right over it and not even ask yourself what's being said. That souls, we just talked about souls, that when a person learns lishma, lishmor lasot, he creates garments for other souls to rise up through the words of Torah. It could be happening right now. I wouldn't know. I don't have my spiritual microscope on. But I could tell you that those words are physical garments. And they create a conduit to a higher realm. And he tells us the secret here is that these souls are also made of an aspect of fire and water. Well, we just said it, didn't we? That our body has fire in the brain and water in the stomach, and there's water, obviously there's moisture in the lungs and the intestines, etc. So our bodies are what? 93% water, Siegelit? You might remember that. Maybe a little more. And so if my soul is an aspect of fire water, then you can see how the soul and the body are going to mishtalev. They're going to blend together. And we know that the fire, the water, and the fire also represent the blood that is coursing through our veins, which is mostly water. Okay, blood is mostly water. And we know that fire is also an aspect of that which makes our hearts pump and makes our lungs breathe. So electricity is coursing through us all the time. It helps us think, it helps all our organs work. Our senses could not work without some kind of electricity that's coming from the brain. So the soul fits right into the body through these elements. If someone asks you, where is your soul? You could say, well, it resides, the Kabbalah says, the neshama is in my mind, and my ruach is in my heart. That's true. But you could also say, well, my soul's in my blood. The blood. And, it's flowing through the gentle waters of there's water in the brain too that protects the skull from the outer world. That protects the brain from the skull. Let's get that straight. And so, nonetheless, the soul is drawing from the roots. The soul is drawing power from the roots of water and fire. Now, in this kind of paradigm, We have to understand that fire, the physical thing, it's a gas that has a fuel that rises. Water is a liquid that falls. The two different directions, obviously, representing also their relative place on the scale of elements. But on a more spiritual level, there's a place where fire emanates from that's not fire, it's the place where fire emanates. Okay? And there's a place where water emanates. And this is in the spiritual realm, according to what we've just said. Because God created the whole world in potential first. God was an architect, and he created the entire world on paper, right? Not paper as we understand it, but on the chalkboard of heaven. Okay, everything was an image. And if you look in Sefer Yetzirah, it tells us very clearly that he drew drawings of everything that would come to be. Before he ever breathed life into a man, he drew the image of man. And it even uses the language, I believe, sirtutim. And that is to make engravings, so to speak. What, of course, was God engraving was his own divine light. That's the outrageous thing. If you have to know the truth, that the chalkboard of heaven is made of Ein Sof. And then it gets engraved into the Sfirot and into the letters and into the four levels of the soul, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so if you look at that metaphor, it helps us a little bit. And the soul is drawing its power from the root of fire and the root of water. Now, water, we can see it as it's emotionally, it represents calm, stillness. Water likes to be still. If you just leave water alone, it becomes very still. And fire never wants to be still. Fire is always on the move. So these also represent different levels on the ladder of these elements and concepts. Okay, so again, when we're learning Rebbe Nachman, we're learning these multiple levels of layers at once, and we have to connect them. We might not sense the truth in that, but it's something that comes to us over time. And our bodies become the real laboratory of creation. If you want to know anything in the universe, you can learn it through your body. Okay, now going forward, so these aspects of the souls are fire and water, ba'im b'tocha tefillah, and they come into prayer. And prayer, guess what? Prayer also has fire and water. The fire in the heat of your body, and the water, the actual liquid that helps you produce letters and words. You cannot talk if your mouth is completely dry. It won't work. So that aspect is also connected to prayer. Shehu bechinat kavod el. And then he calls this the aspect of prayer is kavod el. That when you pray to God, you're actually giving him honor by identifying that he's the source of our blessing. In other words, when you're an infinite, eternal being, and you want all your creatures to acknowledge you, that's all, because it's good for them. It unites humanity and all creation. But when we don't acknowledge God, we're taking away from his kavod. We're acknowledging everything else. I'm thinking about my boss and about the president and about the chief doctor over there, and I'm not giving the kavod to God. And so prayer, because you're focusing your attention on him, gives him the glory. And that's kavod el, kumash katuv, yasimu kavod tehilati. I will put glory as my praise. That's true also. Siglit writes that vapor from the breath of the air. That's right. There is moisture is in the breath of our speech. And zebechinat tehilati echtam lach. And my praise I will seal for you. I will seal in words. When you make a statement to God, it's like you're sealing an agreement. You're sealing an idea or a concept. V'anishamot ima tefillah, and those souls with that prayer, Hanikra Kavod, which is the prayer is called glory, Al Shem Shehi Milabeshet Otanu. Because this is really beautiful. That the prayer creates a garment for you. And now, if you hang around enough the religious world, and especially where the people are very sincere about their avoda and about prayer, and like the Shiva Mukubalim or various other places, that sincerity, you could see who's praying and who's prayed. You could see it in the morning, who's come, not by who's got their tefillin on, but you could tell a person who's prayed. He has a garment of peace about him, a garment of light, a garment of glory. And that is exactly what he's saying here, that the souls will come into that prayer. Ki Rabbi Yonatan kara lama'ane mechabduta, right? The famous statement by Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was a great sage at the period between the first temple and the second. He was also a tzaddik ador in Eretz Yisrael, where when most of the great rabbis were in Babylon. And he's the famous rabbi who pulled, literally spiritually pulled Reish Lakish, the head of the thieves, out of the river and said, if you use your power for Torah, you'll be a great sage instead of a thief. And he did, and he became one of the great ones. And now Rabbi Yochanan used to sit outside the mikveh. This is pretty outrageous too. And when the women would come out of the mikveh, and people said, how could the rabbi sit outside the mikveh where the women are coming out after going, to the mikveh? When a woman goes to the mikveh, it means it's a special night. And that doesn't seem like an appropriate place for a rabbi to sit. And he said, well, first of all, for me, they're like little chickens. I'm not more attracted to them than any other creature of Hashem. But what we understand was that is when a woman is getting ready to conceive of a child, the spiritual state of her being will exactly implicate and shape and form the soul of her baby. If she's angry, not good. If she's happy, that's good. And if she's with awe of God, that's real good for the baby. And if she's thinking about everything else in the world, then that's going to affect the soul of the baby, because we don't realize our minds are filters of soul. And soul pours through, and whatever's in the filter affects the soul. So that's why it's so important to have a pure mind when conception is going to take place. And so Rabbi Yochanan, he would sit outside the mikveh because they would see a sage like that, it would automatically illuminate him. Now this is the same Rabbi Yochanan. They say when he would go into a dark room and pull his sleeve back, his arm would illuminate the room. Okay, we're not talking about an average guy who learns a lot of Torah. He was a person whose his physicality became spiritual. And there's even more outrageous examples the Talmud gives about him, that he cut, once they made fun of him for being fat, and he cut a piece of his own fat away, and he showed them that it didn't rot. And there were no flies attracted to his own flesh. Now, don't try this, please. Please don't try this at home. But that was the level of the spirituality he had invested in his body, that his whole body became like a wick of the candle of his soul. So Rabbi Yochanan, he said, my clothes honor me. Mana is Aramaic for your garments. And mechabduta, they honor me. Now, on a simple level, that's true for every human being. If you walked around naked, you would be lacking honor very quickly. But when we wear clothes, it creates honor. Honor is also this idea of a proper, appropriate separation. That's what clothes do. You go in the bathhouse, you go where the mikvah is, and you see people undressed, and it's not a glorious experience. Trust me. Try to keep your eyes down and, do what you got to do and leave. But he said, my clothes honor me. But here he's talking about the garments of the soul, where the prayers, but his prayer would pull other souls into it and then go up to heaven. Al sheishi milabeshet. Excuse me, I jump back. And this is why they're called the glory of God. And the souls illuminate the garments, and the garments illuminate the souls. So there's even this symbiotic relationship between these two powers. Now, these are concepts enough to think about for a long time and meditate on when you pray, because it gives us, even if we're never at that level, we can still have tremendous respect and awe for the rabbis and for the Kabbalah and for the system we are part of, which is really, it's enough to me to know that I'm part of that, however far down the line I might be. And the nishamot me'irni b'tfilah v'chirat alat maim nukvim. And then the souls are illuminated in the prayer, in the aspect of what is called the elevation of the feminine waters. V'atfilah me'iral nishamot, and the prayers illuminate the souls in terms of chidushim. So these are all some more concepts. We're going to have to explain at length, and it doesn't do them justice. I've got to go right now, I'm sorry to say. But I think this has been a very good, useful beginning to what's going to come tomorrow. Well, actually, I'm not sure about tomorrow because, well, we have Friday, we have Shabbat, and we have our Erev Shabbat talk. And maybe we'll pick this up and connect it to Shabbat. But there's so much within these books. It's a lifetime journey, and it's a wonderful thing. So God bless all of you. And we will see you tomorrow for our live Facebook class in the late afternoon before Shabbat. And then we'll look for you again in our daily class on Sunday. All the best to all of you. Shabbat Shalom.